All right. On today's show, I welcome on a very special guest. I welcome on Coach Dwayne Pina. He is the head coach of St. George's boys basketball team. Coach, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well, Coach. Thank you very much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Coach, I want to ask, and I ask this with all my guests, how are you doing during these COVID times?
I'm fine. I think it's a time where everybody globally is going through sort of a similar thing, and you just have to adjust, adapt, and kind of learn how to navigate it. And that's what I've been able to do. My family's been able to do that. So I'm doing well as I can be right now.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I know. It's just got to kind of adjust and adapt to it. I think the one thing I have a hard time with is I always forget my mask when I go to the grocery store or something like that when I'm in the car.
Yeah, you got to keep a few of those, scattered around, the different spots that you're in on a regular basis.
Yeah, I know that's true. Coach, I want to ask you before we get into your career at St. George's. I want to ask you, how did you start to fall in love with the game of basketball?
Wow, that's a great question. For me, it just happened organically. I'm from New Bedford, Massachusetts, which is a small city just about 60 miles south of Boston. And growing up, grew up in the projects, lower income housing, and sports was something that we did. Basketball, baseball, football, what have you. We were just always outside playing. And if we weren't outside playing, we were at the local Boys and Girls Club. And at the boys club, that's what you did. You played, basketball, baseball, football, ping pong, pool. So all those things. And I just, at an early age, just kind of gravitated, towards basketball, and just kind of have had that sort of been my thing, just since, 5 years old.
That's awesome. That's crazy. And was there a player that, like, when you were growing up, that you really looked up to, like, want to idolize and be like?
That's an easy one for me. And I'm sure, everybody that was born in the, mid early 80s, late 70s, like myself, it was definitely Michael Jordan. I know it was my mother who influenced me in loving MJ and everything about him. She was a huge North Carolina fan. I can remember her folding laundry and me putting the laundry basket on the couch and playing basketball with folded up socks. My younger brother, his name is Jordan Michael Pina. So it's not too far to find where my passion and love for Jordan comes from.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big Jordan fan too. Do you ever get into it with your players about the Jordan LeBron argument?
Oh yeah. Not an argument, worth diving into. But hey, they're standing on solid ground with that argument. There's no wrong answer there. But
Yeah. It's a tough one. It's tough. I've gone back and forth with some players on the show, and I'd be like, I don't know. It's tough because they're both great players, and it's hard to compare them both.
agree.
So, Coach, and now as your career develops, what was your recruiting process like, and how did you decide to go to BC? Because you played at BC and you played with Al Skinner. What was that like?
Yeah. So my recruitment story and path to Boston College is actually quite unique. So I graduated from high school in 1996, and the AAU basketball scene that we know today, it wasn't that in 1996. There were a few select teams at that time. One of them was Buddies, and the other one was BABC. And sort of being on the outskirts of Boston, I never had an opportunity to play with BABC. I played a little bit with Buddies here and there, who also had some really high level players. The Babel twins, Mark Behai, Sean Fine, all these guys went on to play Division I basketball. But sort of as I came up and approached my senior year in high school, I had some recruitment from some Division II schools, Merrimack, Stonehill, Assumption. I had some Division III recruitment, but at that time, they say sort of, ignorance is bliss. I felt personally like I was a Division I player, and I didn't have much guidance sort of through the process. I had a very close family friend of mine who is a Boston College alum and trustee member. And I kind of reached out to him. I wasn't really happy with my recruitment. And I was like, I'm going to Boston College and I'm going to figure out how to make this team.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I did. I tell my guys all the time, like, I wouldn't advise that for anybody.
Yeah.
But I'll never shoot anybody's dream down, whether they want to play for the Boston Celtics or Duke or what have you, because of my story. And again, I wouldn't advise anyone taking the path that I did. I think I was fortunate enough to have it work out for me. But that was sort of my path to BC. And the rest kind of, I went there, worked hard, earned a scholarship, started a few years, and ended up having a pretty good career there.
That's awesome. What was it like, being under like the great coach Al Skinner, like learning from him and having him as your coach?
Al's awesome. I still sort of have, bits and pieces of Coach Skinner in me now as a coach,
Yeah.
in terms of his, his style, his demeanor, his approach to, to practice, his approach to the games, his relationship with players. There's still things today that I have in me that I've, kept with me, from learning from him when I was back in college.
That's awesome. That's great. And what were those things that like you kept in you?
I think one of them is instilling confidence in young players. Is one of the things I think I've learned from him, in trusting young guys and allowing young guys to play and make mistakes. I think Coach Skinner, and the rest of his staff, you have Ed Cooley, Tim O'Shea, Bill Cohen, Pat Duquette, who are now all Division I head coaches. And I think through Coach Skinner, sort of all of his disciples, including myself, have sort of, taking that approach, to the game, and letting the young guys, letting the kids play, letting kids make mistakes, but at the same time, still holding them very much accountable, for their actions, for their mistakes.
That's awesome. That's great. That's a great thing to take from Coach Skinner and learn that and pass along to your players and having your program as well. What was it like? You played at BC, and at that time BC was in the Big East. What was it like playing in the Big East tournament, being underneath those lights?
Again, that was sort of a surreal experience, like kind of considering, where I came from. I remember one of the first times I was really like, wow, like I'm really here, was we played in the Maui Invitational. It was, let me think, it was probably the fall of 1998. And, I'm hopping on a plane to travel to Maui to play in this basketball tournament that, I've been watching on TV the previous, 13 years of my life. And I was like, all right, this is pretty cool right here. The first game that I actually got into, I think it was like our, eighth game of the season, was against Chaminade. I played, I don't know, like 8 minutes that game. Then I played a little bit more against George Washington the next day. Then we played Arizona, who that year I think were national champions. That year they had, Arenas was there, Mike Bibby was there, Miles Simon was there. I didn't get in that game, but I was there. I had great seats. But then when we came back, we played our first Big East game, and that was at Providence. And Providence was sort of a local school, being from New Bedford. And I had started to sort of build a little bit of trust in the coaches and in our teammates at that time. That was the first game that I played, some significant minutes. I played, I think, like 18 or 20 minutes. I was playing in the Big East. I was, used to get Christmas gifts that was my present, to go watch Providence College play against Georgetown. And there I was, sort of on that stage playing it. And it was a surreal feeling.
That's so cool. It's gotta be like to like be in a Maui tournament and like face Chaminade, which is always in it, and then play that Arizona team who was just stacked with like Arenas and the national championships, and like seeing them, and then being able to go through the Big East, who at the time was known as like the best of the, like, one of the best conferences in the NCAA for basketball, and that must have been so much fun to play against all those guys. Did you ever play in the Big East tournament at the Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, we did. 3 years in a row. That's sort of, again, just an experience that I'll cherish. And I didn't really realize, the magnitude of just myself being there and playing, until a little ways after. Because when I'm there, just my mentality was like, hey, this is kind of where like I'm supposed to be here. But again, it was a life experience, I'll never forget. And I'll always, cherish, that time with my teammates, spending time in New York City and just, being able to say, I played in the Big East tournament.
That's all cool. Did you win the Big East tournament when you were there, or did that happen?
So that was so we won the Big East tournament. That was my fifth year at BC,
Okay.
which that year I got sick.
Oh,
I
geez.
ended up having a heart condition,
Oh, wow.
and so that was the sort of the end of my career. So I got to play 3 years, and then my last year, which was my fifth year there, I couldn't play.
Oh, no. So you just like,
That was the year we were 27-5, won the Big East tournament, made it to the second round of the NCAA tournament.
yeah,
So
Troy Bell was on the team,
Troy
right?
Bell was there. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah.
John Beerbaum, Xavier Singletary, bunch of other really good friends of mine.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad they found that out, before anything bad could have happened. But well, at least you still got that. Were you still there? You got to experience it with the team and get to
I
go.
did. I did.
That's cool. What's it like? I mean, you didn't get to play in the NCAA tournament. What's it like just to walk on the floor and see like the crowds and like be a part of that like atmosphere?
Yeah, again, I mean, it was again sort of a surreal experience. I think for me personally at that time, um, feeling healthy enough like I could play, because it wasn't like I had a torn ACL where I physically couldn't run.
Yeah,
So, my sickness was like internal. It was my heart.
yeah,
And so like I was with the program, but I had distance. So I wasn't at every practice. I sort of, got to be a regular student for at least that 1 year. So following the team, tracking the team, that year we beat Syracuse at home, we beat UConn at home, had some really wonderful home wins that I was a part of. But in terms of like being with the team on the road, I wasn't a part of that.
Oh, okay, okay. And now after everything's all said and done, what's your decision to get into coaching?
Well, I when I graduated from BC in '01, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a little unsure. It was kind of like, hey, what's next? 9/11 came right after that. I ended up back at my local high school. I was teaching, and I knew I wanted to coach. Being in the high school scene, I knew maybe at some point, Ed Rodrigues, who's a sort of a legend at New Bedford, coached there for 30 plus years. Maybe following in his footsteps was something that I had in the back of my mind. I mean, sort of as I'm going through these different, options for my future, a Division III job actually landed on my lap, and that was at Rhode Island College. So at the time, one of my best friends that I grew up with in New Bedford, Mark DeBrito, who went to Bentley, his good friend from Bentley got the head coaching job at Rick and was looking for an assistant. So that's kind of how that worked. That's what kind of got my foot in the door. And
Yeah,
then the rest just kind of, just kind of took care of itself.
fell into place, and you ended up at Bryant, and then you ended up at Brown afterwards. I actually just missed you at Brown. I was interning at Brown in 2012 during like the end of 2012 season, because you started at 2012, right?
Yeah, yep. 2012 to 2016. Yep.
Yeah, I just missed you when I was there. I was interning over there. I used to work with the basketball team and do stuff over there. What was it like working at Brown? I mean, did you guys beat PC like in a big game too as well too? Like, what was it like for you at
Yeah,
Brown?
Brown was an amazing experience. I mean, just to be involved with the highest level of that blend of academics and athletics, was a really good experience for me. I got to recruit nationally. When I was at Bryant, it was more regional. So going to Brown, recruiting nationally, I got to expand my network through that. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Ivy League, is usually ranked between 10 and 15 in the RPI annually. And last year the Ivy League, I think, was ranked ahead of the Atlantic 10 conference. So it's high level basketball. So like, yes, we beat Providence, but for us at Brown, like, we expected to win that game.
Yeah.
Like we walked into those games like, hey, we're going to win. And that whole mentality, it's from the top down. That mentality came from the head coach, Mike Martin. So yeah, I mean, that was a great feeling to beat Providence at home. And, I think one year we, were up like 15 against URI at home and we end up getting beat, but we expected to compete and win those games.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think when I was there, they actually beat URI when I was working over there. It was like,
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
crazy. It was cool. I mean, the place is a cool little gym to work at, and it's got like it's good atmosphere when there's a bunch of people in there.
Did you work for the Chris Hummer?
No, no. I worked for I was like I was in the athletic sports like marketing department. So
Yeah.
I would do like the music and like the halftime shows and stuff, like run those stuff. But it was cool just to like be at all the games. I was like, I got a free ticket to every basketball
I
game.
used to bust Dave Longo's chops all the time because the environment was like, boo.
Yeah. I got a couple sold out games. I got Harvard and a sold out game. I helped it.
That sells itself out though.
Yeah. I did. Anyways, coach, how, and then what's your decision to go to St. George?
Another really good question. So like I sort of saw my professional trajectory. I wanted to be the head coach at Boston College. Like that was my goal, my dream. I wanted to be a Division I high level, high major Division I assistant, and eventually work my way into a high level Division I coach. And again, I went to BC kind of on a whim. So like that sort of was my mentality. As I got older, I left Brown when I was 39 years old. As I was getting older, just, I don't want to say priorities began to shift, but, you start thinking of, okay, plan B or maybe plan C or plan 1B. And I wasn't looking for a new job at the time. I have a good friend of mine who has Division I experience. He coached at Harvard, he coached at BU, who is the athletic director at Milton Academy. And again, another Bentley connection. And he told me about an upcoming vacancy here at St. George's. And I was like, interesting. I had been to the school one time. I was recruiting a kid and I came to watch him play football, even though he was a basketball player. So I was like, wow, I remember that. I was at school with the beautiful views overlooking the beach. It's interesting. Let me go down and let me check this out. So I ended up coming down, talked to a few people. I wasn't really sure how I would, fit in other aspects of the community here at St. George's. But because I knew I didn't want to go back to being in the classroom, but there's, other departments here that are not teaching faculty. And, I felt like the admission office was something that, I'd be very comfortable in. The role of the admission officer is very similar to college level basketball recruiting. So that was something that intrigued me. And then I sort of thought to myself, like, why can't St. George's, become a powerhouse basketball program? Amazing facilities, amazing location, very, very good academics. It kind of fit in my basketball world, in my academic world, from BC to Bryant to Brown. So I was like, well, why not St. George's? I remember when I was at Brown, we'd recruit hundreds of kids a year, and we could be recruiting a kid for 9 months, and HYP, one of those schools will come in, and that was it. That prestige was difficult for us to overcome, and I felt like at St. George's, or why not? Why would you not want to come to St. George's? So, and then, got a little deeper in the process, and it worked for me. It worked for my family. And so, yeah, I'm happy.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, it is a beautiful campus. So that's great that you were able to get the position there. And what do you take from all your coaching experiences? How do you build a culture and a program along with your coaching philosophy at St. George's?
Again, like my coaching philosophy now is literally, I've accumulated it from, every person I've interacted with throughout my, basketball career, playing wise, coaching wise. So from, my high school, or not even before that, before my like Pee Wee League basketball coach, all the way through Mike Martin, I took bits and pieces, and I would always just kind of write things down, and things that I liked, ideas, philosophies, plays that I liked, and I would always just keep a binder. And finally, when I got my own program here at St. George's, I got here and it was like this thick. And I was like, now I really need to sort of create, who I am. And that's sort of what I did. Our program philosophies, we sort of have these program pillars that, focus on, leadership, toughness, merit, growth. So we try to just instill that. I want my guys to know that, this basketball world is, it's more, it's not necessarily academic, but it's very educational. So I try to take, all that and kind of weave it all into, the culture that we're creating here at St. George's.
I love it. That's awesome, coach. They're very lucky to have you. And what's it like? And you kind of touched upon this before, but what's it like to turn St. George's into making them into a powerhouse around around the nation?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say we're a powerhouse yet.
Yeah.
I appreciate the language, but we're not there yet. I think what Mike Hart has done at St. Andrews. They're a powerhouse. That's, we aspire to be like that program, with the longevity they had. But it's been a rewarding process. I must say, I have, or we have the support of the administration here, which is very helpful in trying to build the program. I think institutionally they believe in, sort of what, using basketball as a tool, the same way you do, teaching faculty does. And I think that's important to me, to have the administration and the institution behind me. But we've been able to, grow the program. My first year, we won 3 games, then we won 6 games, then we won 16, then we won 23. And, we're doing it, with the right kids. We're doing it with high character kids. We're doing it with obviously very good basketball players. And we're doing it with kids who are serious about the sport.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great that you have what you need and you're doing what you can to increase the program and win. And then, like you said, it's not quite where you want the powerhouse yet, but working on that
On the
longevity.
way.
And but yeah, get on the way. And has there been like a favorite moment or a favorite game that's happened in your career at St. George's so far?
I think so last year we played Pomfret. It was a home game. It was a Class B game. Those games are very important in terms of who's going to make it into the Class B tournament. So we had a home game. It was on a Friday night, and our gym's small. Our gym probably capacity maybe 600 people, maybe 400. I don't know. But the gym was packed. Most of the student body was there. Faculty was there. It was an overtime or a double overtime game. And we ended up winning. And when we got into the locker room, there's some pictures of it. I'll have to send you one, but it just kind of, it captured kind of the feeling I'm trying to explain now. And we just went crazy. Our coaching staff, our players, it was a great win. We knew at that win we were going to be in the tournament. And it was sort of at that moment I was like this right here is what high school basketball, prep school basketball is all about. The next day, our guys were walking around, the student body was excited, the faculty was excited, and it was just a really, really good feeling. And that was kind of, one of my most vivid memories of, winning a big game at St. George's.
That's awesome. That's great. And now we kind of touched upon this a little bit off air, but what's your outlook on the current season? How are you guys doing, and how are you going to do the current season, basically, with everything that's going on?
Yeah. Our plan right now is, like I was saying, our students just moved back to campus on Sunday, January 17th. We go on spring break March 5th or 6th. So tentatively, our plan is to stay on campus and just do individual workouts, strength and conditioning, train and practice for, 3.5, 4 weeks to somewhere, mid, late February. And then ideally what I'd like to do is have our students go remote, and then we'll play games from, mid to late February to the middle of March. That's sort of the tentative plan right now. I'm actually in the process of coordinating our schedule to because right now, the state guidelines say we can only play in-state teams. So
Yeah.
I've reached out to some RIIL teams, some prep school teams, and just trying to work on a schedule right now.
That's awesome. Yeah, yeah. We just got the news recently that everyone's good to play in Rhode Island. So that's great. I mean, at least you guys will have somewhat of a season, and hopefully things will be a little bit better by the time you guys get going and everything works out in that way.
Right.
And coach, now I gotta ask. I asked this this is the last question. I asked this to everyone. Favorite thing to do outside of basketball?
Um, my favorite thing to do outside of basketball. I think I'm a sort of a people person, and just kind of hang out and do nothing, do nothing with people is what I like to do. Kind of reverting back to like my jump to St. George's. One of the things I got back moving from the college level we're coaching to where I'm at now is I got time, which is, it's a precious commodity to me. And I got a lot of that back to myself. So I've been able to give, my time back to, my kids, my family, my wife. I've, been able to do a few other things, some entrepreneurial type things with a friend of mine. So, having my time back to do nothing or to experience other things. I mean, I love Newport. I love hanging out in Newport. So it's a nice little town.
That's awesome. That's great. That's great that you had that time, and that's awesome. Spend time with family and do things that you like to do. And I like that. The people person is a good answer. I like that. Like that answer. I feel like I'm a people person too. So definitely understand that time is important. So that's great, Coach. That's all I have for you today. Is there any statements or any questions before we sign off?
No, I appreciate you having me on, and any youngsters out there, eventually looking for prep school, keep St. George's in mind.
All right, definitely. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Coach. I really appreciate it. You have a good one.
Thanks, you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.